What if the beauty you chase isn't guiding you upward, but binding you to illusion? Welcome to a forgotten layer of Plato, one that speaks not to students of philosophy, but to men who are ready to wake up, men who've chased the fantasy, fallen for the mask, and now want to see clearly. This is not about blaming women. It's about seeing women as they are, not as culture painted them. And more importantly, it's about seeing yourself, because the mirror doesn't just reflect her shadow, it reveals yours. Plato never wrote a single book. Everything we know, his theories, his teachings, his warnings, come through dialogue, through Socrates, through drama, through masks. And maybe that was the point, because sometimes truth is too dangerous to write plainly. Sometimes truth must be hidden in the open, buried beneath conversation, layered between riddles, passed like a secret torch to those who are awake enough to understand it. One such truth, never stated but always present in Plato's work, is this: female desire is not what we think it is. It is not passive. It is not innocent. It is not always romantic. It is powerful, strategic, and at times devastating. And if a man does not understand this force, if he idealizes it, worships it, or denies it, he will be ruled by it. So Plato didn't speak of it directly. He encoded it in the myth of Diotima, in the allegory of the cave, and in the structure of the symposium. He placed it beneath the dialogues, like a riddle inside a mirror. Let's begin with the mask itself, the myth of feminine innocence, and how Plato quietly dismantled it, without ever once naming it out loud. In Plato's Symposium, the priestess Diotima delivers what many consider the soul of Platonic love. She tells Socrates of a ladder, a spiritual ascent, from lust for one body, to appreciation of all beauty, to love of the soul, and finally, to the form of beauty itself. But there's a shadow beneath the staircase. Because what if the ladder isn't always climbed? What if, for most men, it becomes a loop? What if, instead of rising, they circle endlessly at the lowest rung, obsessed not with beauty as an ideal, but with the embodiment of it in a woman? He who begins to see the beauty in one body, if he is rightly guided, should then perceive beauty in all bodies. Symposium 210a. But are modern men rightly guided? Diotima offers an idealized path, one that assumes the man is already philosophically awakened. Most men aren't. They are wounded, starved, uninitiated. And so the woman becomes not a door to higher love, but a prison of projection. He doesn't climb the ladder. He stares at the first step and worships it like a god. Here lies Plato's hidden critique, that the pursuit of beauty, without the discipline of reason and self-knowledge, leads to enslavement, not enlightenment. The woman is not to blame for this. It is the man who fails to ascend, because his desire is not erotic, it is existential. He does not want her body. He wants her gaze, her approval, her divine blessing. And that is where the lie begins, when her beauty becomes the alibi for his hunger to feel whole. Plato knew this. He placed Diotima in the center of the symposium, not just as an inspiration, but as a test. Can you love beauty without being possessed by it? Can you recognize desire as a mirror, not a map? Most men cannot. and so they never reach the form of beauty. They remain caught in form itself, and they call it love. In Homer's Odyssey, Odysseus sails past the island of the Sirens. They sing the most beautiful songs imaginable, promising truth, wisdom, love. But every sailor who listens to them dies. It is not hate that kills them, it's longing. And this myth is not just about ancient sailors or mythical creatures. It's about men today, scrolling through filtered illusions, falling into fantasies, idealizing what they don't understand. Plato knew this danger. He spoke of beauty as something that could elevate the soul or enslave it. The sight of beauty makes the wings of the soul grow. Phaedrus 251a. Yes, beauty can awaken us, but what happens when we don't have wings? What happens when a man isn't grounded in truth, purpose, or inner standard? Beauty becomes not a guide, but a trap, and no one warns him. Because the modern world is one giant siren song, endless profiles, movies, music videos, dream women, fantasy relationships, all singing the same tune. You are worthy if she desires you. Men don't just want love, they want to be chosen. And this is where beauty becomes dangerous, because it now carries the power to define a man, not by his strength, but by how she responds to him. Men love with their eyes, women with their ears. But in this age, men love with both and die with neither. Plato's dialogues never present beauty as evil, but he warns that beauty without virtue, without inner anchoring, becomes deceptive, just like the sirens. The songs are real, but so is the death that follows. And in today's world, the death is psychological. Lost identity, emotional dependency, romantic delusion, collapse of masculine purpose. The man becomes a mirror of her gaze, not a reflection of his own soul. So Plato hides a lesson inside every myth. Beauty is real. Desire is human. But without wisdom, it's not assent, it's enslavement. The sirens don't scream, they sing. And it is the sweetest voices that most often lead us astray. Plato's most famous allegory is the cave. A group of prisoners is chained in darkness. They've lived there their entire lives, facing a wall. Behind them, puppeteers cast shadows using firelight. And the prisoners? They believe the shadows are reality. It's only when one man escapes, sees the sun, and returns to free the others that the illusion is exposed. This isn't just a story about truth. It's a story about the kind of man who lives and dies in projection. Because for many men, woman is the shadow on the wall, a dream figure, an idea, a collection of cultural myths and unmet needs. He doesn't see her. He sees a projection of her, an image shaped by movies, mothers, and marketing. He's not relating to reality. He's relating to fantasy. Plato understood this. The cave isn't just about political ignorance or metaphysical blindness. It's about the psyche, the way we confuse appearance with essence. The world of our sight is like the habitation in prison. Republic, Book 7. The modern man is surrounded by light, screens, photos, narratives, but he's still in the cave. He thinks he sees her, but he's watching shadows. And what happens when he finally meets a real woman? He tries to fit her into the shadow shape in his mind, and when she doesn't match, he gets confused, hurt, bitter. He doesn't realize the betrayal is not hers. It's his own, because he loved a shadow, not a soul. The cave walls today are made of algorithms, influencers, porn fairy tales, romantic comedies, pickup forums, trauma. And the longer he stays in the cave, the harder it is to see clearly. Not just her, but himself. The tragedy isn't that she fooled him. It's that he never saw her to begin with. Plato's message is clear. Until you leave the cave of illusions, you will always live in disappointment. Not because women are broken, but because your image of them never matched their reality. And no man can build a strong frame from shadows. Plato never taught his students to resent the shadows. He taught them to question them. He didn't burn down the cave. He walked out of it, and then returned, not with bitterness, but with truth. This is the challenge of the modern man. To see through illusion without turning to contempt. Because once a man awakens from the false myths about women, her innocence, her softness, her always nurturing nature, he stands at a dangerous crossroads. Will he grow bitter, or will he grow wise? This is where philosophy becomes necessary. It's not enough to expose the illusion. You must see why it was seductive, and more importantly, you must understand your role in maintaining it. Nietzsche once wrote, "He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster." It's easy to project your disillusionment onto women. It's harder to ask, why did I need her to be perfect? Why did I seek salvation through her? Why did I hand her the keys to my self-worth? Plato's philosopher does not hate the world. He questions it. He sees appearances and seeks essence. To see through the illusion of female perfection is not misogyny, it is maturity. To strip the romantic projections and see a woman as she is, complex, instinctive, strategic, emotional, is not cynicism. It is clarity, and clarity doesn't diminish love. It makes it real. Because love, when grounded in illusion, is addiction. But love grounded in truth, that is freedom. The philosopher's eye is trained not just on the world, but inward. He sees how he deceived himself. He takes responsibility for the fantasy he built, and he refuses to replace one illusion with another, idealization with resentment. The great thinkers of history, Marcus Aurelius, Schopenhauer, Kierkegaard, they all confronted female nature without flattery, but also without hate. You always own the truth, but it owns you if you don't speak it. Kierkegaard. This is the masculine awakening, to hold truth without rage, to see clearly without collapsing, to feel the pain of disillusionment without turning it into doctrine, because the point is not to hate the sirens. The point is to stop steering toward the rocks. The philosopher's eye doesn't punish, it pierces. And once you see clearly, you never chase shadows again. Before Plato wrote the dialogues, he sat at the feet of a man who left no books behind, Socrates. What Socrates offered was not dogma, but a method, a way of living, a way of thinking, a way of disciplining desire through introspection and virtue. He did not preach against love, but he warned men about love unexamined. The unexamined life is not worth living. Apology 38A. In today's world, the unexamined desire is destroying lives. Men fall for beauty without wisdom, for validation without truth. And then they wonder why they feel lost, betrayed, and hollow. Socrates understood that desire is not evil, but it must be trained, sharpened, ordered. He viewed the soul as having three parts: reason, the philosopher's mind; spirit, the warrior's will; appetite, the lover's hunger. When appetite rules the man, he becomes a slave to impulse, to lust, to romantic illusions. When spirit rules alone, he becomes aggressive, constantly reacting, proving, overcompensating. Only when reason leads, with spirit as its ally and appetite as its servant, can a man be free. And this is the masculine task, not to suppress desire, but to harness it. To no longer let longing for the feminine define your choices. Because every man who makes her his purpose loses himself. The Socratic man asks, "What do I want? Why do I want it? Is this hunger grounded in truth or emptiness? And if it is emptiness, then chasing her will only deepen the void." Discipline, then, is not repression. It's alignment. Desire must serve your mission, your vision, your selfhood. This is what Socrates modeled in every dialogue: detachment from praise, disdain for status, devotion to inner order. He was poor, unattractive, mocked by the powerful, and yet he shook Athens. Not because he seduced, but because he refused to be seduced by the crowd, by the lie, by the ego. Socrates wasn't anti-woman. He was pro-man in the deepest sense. He believed in the soul's capacity for logos, for order, for virtue. He taught men to think, not with bitterness, but with fire. And that fire still burns. The man who tames his desire doesn't lose his edge. He sharpens it. And in doing so, he no longer seeks to be chosen. He becomes the one who chooses. This is the legacy. And it lives in every man who dares to examine the illusion and then rise above it. In Plato's world, every visible thing is but a shadow of a deeper, eternal reality. A woman's beauty, charm, sensuality are all reflections, not ends in themselves. They are echoes of a higher form, a spiritual architecture that can only be seen with the philosopher's eye. But when the modern man encounters this reflection, he often stops there. He confuses the image with the ideal, the face with the essence, the touch with the truth. And in doing so, he becomes trapped. Not by her, but by his own failure to distinguish form from fantasy. He who sees with his eyes is blind to the reality of the form. Paraphrased from the Republic, Book 6. This is Plato's final warning. If you chase the appearance without penetrating to the truth beneath it, you will live in illusion. And the cost of illusion is your freedom. Every man must learn this distinction. The woman before you is not the goddess you imagined. Her smile is not a promise of your healing. Her presence is not your salvation. She is real, complex, flawed, feminine, and she cannot complete you. Plato calls you to seek the form, not the fantasy. The truth behind the mask, the pattern behind the pull, the principle beyond the pleasure. Only then do you stop falling for the show. Only then do you rise as a man. This doesn't mean rejecting women. It means seeing them clearly, not as objects of completion, but as mirrors of your own soul's journey. If you're still expecting her to save you, you haven't left the cave. If your confidence dies when she walks away, you are still bowing to illusion. This video, this truth, is your invitation. Step outside the fantasy. Step into clarity. Remember, she is not the form. She reflects it. But you were made to behold it. And when you finally see the truth behind the image, you'll never worship shadows again. Welcome to the other side. Now, build your standard, reclaim your soul, and don't ever confuse the fantasy for the form. Subscribe to this channel, not for entertainment, but for awakening. Because the real work begins after the illusion ends, and you are not here to be chosen. You are here to choose.